Joining us this morning, we have Sam Kavanaugh. He's currently a Jeopardy superstar. Former Carlton High School graduate, graduated in 2009. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, 2009 Carlton High School graduate, grew up in the area, and you are a teacher yourself, but you're also the son of a couple of teachers, so definitely someone who is deeply rooted in the world of knowledge, which is probably part of the reason you had a little bit of a run of success on Jeopardy so far.
It definitely helped, yeah. Although I wouldn't say that I necessarily knew more than any of my opponents. You know, everyone up there's passed all the same tests and has done pretty well and is pretty bright. So I think it was, you know, my past has definitely helped me, but it was also just like planning for it and being ready for the gameplay.
And that actually raises a kind of a perfect question. And I know people that are on different types of quiz shows or game shows, there's always the question of how do you prepare for something like this? And so what is your process prior to getting on the show? What was the preparation process like for you?
Well, I mean, really, it's been a years-long process. I've tried out a few times. You have to take an online test that they have every year. It's like 50 questions, and you have 15 seconds for each one, so you can't really Google it or anything. And then if you do well enough on that, they'll invite you for an in-person practice game and interview and another test with a bunch of other potential contestants, and then eventually give you a call. But that whole process took about 2 years. Over that time, I mean, honestly, it's just like really rooted in I've always been, interested in absolutely everything, like every, genre of music. I've always wanted to try to read everything that I can. I'm just constantly just trying to learn everything because I enjoy it. And so that really provides the base. And then more specifically, I made a little practice buzzer to try to ring in and kind of go with the flow of the game when I was watching it on TV. And then I just really narrowed in on, the major sort of groups of categories. They can ask about anything, as you know, if you see the show, but, there's sort of certain patterns that come up, certain subjects that they like to talk about a little bit more than others. And so just figuring out those by watching the show a lot and figuring out, okay, I'm really strong in these, kind of weak in these other ones. How can I bring those up? How can I improve my strengths? And then honestly, the most important area of knowledge, I think, was self-knowledge of just knowing that, I'm not going to know that question, so just don't ring in. Because If I ring in and get it wrong, that's some negative points for me. So really knowing that.
Maybe you don't want to address this, but was there any particular categories you knew going in, I really hope this isn't one I run into?
Well, I felt comfortable, like I could get maybe the top 3 clues in any category. There'd be some that when I arrived in the studio, so one of the things that, if you haven't been to the show taping, you wouldn't really know, is that they taped 5 episodes in one day. Okay. They sort of pretend like they're all on a separate day, but we taped each of my first 3 episodes back in March, all on the same day, and the returning champion was a young man named Ryan Bilger, and talking with him, in the green room before the other contestants, I realized that this kid knows way more than I do about certain subjects like baseball. He's like a real big baseball fanatic.
Okay.
And I knew if one of those came up, it would be something that he would just kind of dominate me on. So luckily it came up in a game before I played that he was in. So I'm like, okay, they're not going to ask you 2 games in a row. So that was a good one.
Perfect. Now, I know you mentioned this. So on Monday's episode yesterday, there was a brief conversation about when and how you found out that you were actually slated to be on the show. And tell us a little bit more about that story. You were actually out of the country, if I remember right.
Yeah. So that was I almost missed one of the most important phone calls of my life. In fact, I did miss it twice. My mom's family's from Australia. I lived there until I was about 4 before moving to the U.S. where my dad's from. And we were back there visiting family first time in maybe 11 or 12 years for me. So that was a big, important trip. And, I didn't have my regular U.S. phone number inside, and I missed the phone call from Jeopardy about twice. I was camping at the time, and actually in Australia when I finally checked my email and realized that I need to make a phone call at 5:30 in the morning Australia time in order to call in and get my chance on the show.
So it kind of a nick of time, last second. You missed a couple phone calls, but you were able to get on the show, and it's paid off for you, which is great. Having a string of shows. Jeanne and I were talking about this earlier about how you see those people that are on there, they're a one and done type of a deal, and anybody who's able to be on even more than one day is it's exciting. But you've also amassed some serious money over the time that you had days where you're putting up $20,000-$30,000 at a time, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, at the time, you can't think of it as money when you're playing. You have to think
Right.
about it as points, because as soon as you start thinking, well, this is my money, you're not going to be risking the amounts that you need to win. I mean, that was really my biggest advantage, I think, is that I was I wager well.
Sure.
Daily doubles, I'll go all in most of the time, or bet significant enough to kind of get ahead of opponents. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I'm not even looking at the score until maybe the end of the show, and I look up and it's like, hey, there's $33,000 there. All right, I'll take it.
So I have to ask this question: was the mustache something you did for the show, or have you always had one?
No, I've had one for about 2 years, on and off, literally. And I had it at the time when they called me, and I was thinking, I had just been in Australia. It was the middle of summer there. They have opposite season stuff in the southern hemisphere, and I had a little bit of a tan going on, and I realized I can't shave this off because then I'd have sort of this like white spot underneath where it had been. And so I was sort of forced into that. But I mean, it's something I like to have anyway. It's part of my look at times, at least. And the response has, most of the replies or comments that I see on Twitter are about my mustache. So, positive and negative, I'll take it, I guess.
Well, it's kind of a signature thing. You see some people, they've got either a certain type of clothing they wear or something special. You've got the mustache. You can own that.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of nerds up on that stage, myself included. So you got to do something to stand out, I guess.
That's right. Well, and I mean, he doesn't have it anymore, but Alex Trebek is known as like the guy with the mustache. So I mean,
yeah,
you're
absolutely,
kind of paying homage a little bit.
Yeah, and he liked it, so.
There we go. Well, and that's even better. So what's Alex and being on the show been like? Give us a little bit of a snapshot of what a taping is like. You said there's more than one taping in a day, but what's being on the set like? Give us a little bit of a snapshot of what that's like.
Yeah, so Alex, to start with, is like actually one of the most charming people I've ever met. He's super great. He talks to the crowd, and talks to each of us contestants once he comes out. The show taping itself is, you arrive there, it's taped in Los Angeles, and you stay at the hotel that they put you. They don't put you up in it, but they give you sort of the corporate rate. You have to, front all the plane fare and hotel stuff yourself. So, you're hoping you can win some money then to cover that. But they pick you up at the front of that hotel at like 7 a.m. I actually missed that van my first day and had to Uber there, and it was just, so that was I got to shout out my driver. His name is Derek, I think. He just, like, once I told him I need to go on Jeopardy, he just like stepped on it and was going cruising around traffic trying to get me there on time. You show up and you go in this room, and there's 15 other contestants there to tape all that week's episodes, and it's a great atmosphere, actually. I mean, we're all competitive. We all want to win, but a lot of really smart people, really curious people that have some great conversations in there, and then you play some practice games, and then suddenly it's like, all right, we're playing. And it's about the same amount of time to see on TV as it does to tape. They do, they have the same amount of time for commercial breaks and stuff, but in between episodes, if you win, there's only about 10-15 minutes to change clothes and then come back out for the next one. So if you're winning multiple in a row, it gets exhausting. Which I found out, like, by the end of my game that aired last Friday, I maybe couldn't have done another one in a row at that point. It was pretty hard.
And those are things you don't think about, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of shows tape at least a few shows at a time, if not several. And so you don't think about needing a change of clothing, making sure you're ready to go, looking like it's a brand new day, even though it's not
right.
Technically.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of that sort of behind the scenes stuff. Luckily, I mean, everyone that I met there who worked for Jeopardy was just like, they're really good at their job. They seemed like they loved it there. I mean, I suppose it might be one of the more, the show has been going for 35 years. It might be one of the more stable gigs in show business. They did a great job.
When the dust settles and the glow of having been on the show is all over and, things kind of come back to normal for you, are you going to watch the show any differently, having kind of been on the show and seeing how things are actually being a part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot there that now that I understand how it works from behind the scenes, that like, okay, I understand what that player is trying to do now, maybe a little differently. One of the things I think that, when you're watching the show, myself included in the past, you kind of get the person that you're rooting for, and like, oh, well, this guy's a big jerk. I don't like him. But honestly, it's just like, that's the most high stress situation you can be in, and so it's like, well, you can't judge anyone based on how they're acting up there, because like everyone I met was super nice. Not that I thought anyone came across as a jerk at all when I was playing them, but there's a whole other aspect to it, and now my goal, if I can win 5 games, or no, if I can win more, then I need to keep going with that, is to make it on to the Tournament of Champions.
Which would be fantastic.
Right. I mean, that's my first one was my first goal was to win 1 game. And then after that, it's like, okay, let's reset. Let's try to stretch this out a little bit. And there's no guarantee cutoff or anything, but, the more you can win, the better chance you have.
Did you have an expectation going on? I mean, you said you had a goal of just winning a game, but did you have any sort of, beside that, obviously you hope to win as many games as you can, but did you hope maybe like, if I could put a couple together, or did you have any sort of preconceived notion of what you would hope to do?
Yeah, I mean, the first one, it was always 1 game, and then after that, 5 games. After that 5th one, it was sort of like, well, at that point, maybe then I'll just kind of keep going. 5 has always been the cutoff for typically the cutoff for the Tournament of Champions. It was never really about trying to win as much money as possible, because I'm trying to win that particular game. If it's a hard board that the categories aren't going in my favor, I might have to play a little more conservative, and just try to win it as in any way possible.
Very cool. Well, Sam, we appreciate you joining us this morning. It's been really interesting learning kind of the behind the scenes, the experience, and of course, again, it's been really exciting being able to watch someone with some local roots being a part of a show that I know, like you said, has a long, long history in TV, 30-some years being on the air, and you now are someone who has been a part of that, which is super exciting.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the support from everyone I've been getting, and catch me tonight.